I am here with Debbie Winter. Debbie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I took a somewhat wandering route to the world of voice, as did you. So maybe give us a bit of your history and how you found yourself from lecturing about the law to singing.
Yeah, so I was a law lecturer for best parts of 20 years. And then when I was just a sort of potted version, when I was a young child, I had a massive voice and I lost it until I was 28. So I knew it was there. And when I was a kid, everybody would turn and look at me when I was singing, but I lost it for various reasons. And then I rediscovered it. And I was literally 28 when I rediscovered it. And the moment I rediscovered my voice, I thought, oh God, I'm in the wrong job. It's like everything changed. I was all pipped for promotion. I was going to, climb the ladder and all this type of thing. And everything changed. And then I started to gig and I went straight into gigging. You know, I've got my voice back. I'm going straight into, I had no training, straight into gigging. And I was gigging on the jazz scene. And that's kind of how, that's the link. And then I was running a jazz club. And I had this ridiculous idea that to run a jazz club, and I wanted this particular pianist, and I couldn't afford him. And so I ended up teaching. I had to do some. I always do this. I have these crazy ideas, and then I'm thinking, oh my God, that's really much more complicated than I thought. I haven't got a piano. I just got to put this gig together. So I ended up teaching essentially voice. I ended up having this big group of people. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I hadn't got a Scooby-Doo. Was doing group of 15 people,
Wait,
and
wait,
there
wait.
I was.
You just slipped in British rhyming slang. So for the uninitiated, Scooby-Doo rhymes with clue, yes?
So
Yes. Okay.
there I was teaching, not really knowing what I was doing. I'd also got no training. I've got voice issues creeping up, as you can imagine. And so there were a whole host of issues, which is kind of how I ended up. I ended up sort of taking a course with Estill. So it went crazy. Estill went crazy in the UK. It was a very complicated route to get sort of certified in, and I ended up sort of going in, being thrown almost into education. So then I thought there's got to be another way in which we can maybe actually, maybe get a course fully accredited so that there's a beginning and a middle and an end. It's much clearer, and so that was kind of how it all started. Really, it was a very messy journey. Really was a very messy journey none of it was intentional. I didn't sit and think, oh, I know, I'll sit and I'll start a course. It was all sort of very sort of chaotic, really. I was trying to get my Still qualification, so I ran courses to try and get that, and sort of one thing led to another. So that's sort of my potted version of how I got into voice. So the link to the voice really was the fact that I was gigging and was sort of going all out, but I didn't really essentially know what I was doing.
Yeah, but what I love about what you do is you say there's a sense of chaos, but actually everything you do is very focused and it's towards a goal. And I first became aware of you. You'd started an online Facebook group, and then the Voice Study Center started to become more and more in my awareness. And then I put it together. Oh, wait, this is the same person. And I just love the entrepreneurship and the organization that you bring to what it is that you do.
Oh, thank you. I suppose so. I'm a visionary. So I always work to a vision. And I've always got this, whatever I've got in my head, it has to come off. And I will literally move mountains to get it off the ground. And I'm tenacious to the point where it's exhausting, really. I just can sometimes just want to step outside my own head because it's just exhausting. Because whatever it is I'm focusing on, it has to come off. And I just keep plugging away. And I guess I was like that with the jazz club. I was doing it. It was not for profit. I had a whole jazz collective going on, and those gigs were happening, and those gigs were going to sell, and I was going to fill every table, and I was going to pay everybody, and that's kind of how it was. And I moved mountain, even to the point where I'd buy tables and chairs where there was a shortage but the damn gig was going ahead. And I think that's how I am with everything, which is kind of like, I'm a bit like a hurricane, really. So the poor university that I'm involved with, sometimes they're like, just God, get that woman off the phone and give her what she wants. So yes. Yeah, I guess I suppose that is me. So I suppose it is chaotic, but at the same time, I guess I'm a completer.
And that, I always tell people, that's the hardest part. Because it's one thing to be a good starter, completing is really hard. And I've said this before, but I'm right in the finishing stages of another book, and it is always the worst time. Do you find that, like, the completion of the project is the harder part for you?
Oh yeah, yeah. You get the real high with the idea. And then you've got to bring that idea into fruition. I suppose what I've learned as well is you can't have too many ideas. You can't have an idea, and you've got to have it so that you've got to complete before you build on another one. I think people make that mistake. They build on too many ideas at the same time. You've got to strip it right back, take it to its core, and get that working, and then you add another building block. And that's what I've been careful to do, I think, with the Voice Study Centre, because I was voice workshop before the Voice Study Centre, and I think what I've done is I've only ever worked within my limits, made sure that's a success, and then I've added. Because otherwise, you just burn out.
Yeah, this right here, this is a bonus lesson for everybody, because people who are creatives, they tend to miss that part. We get enamored with the idea, the rush of the idea, and it's the finishing that's absolutely vital. And speaking of what you've created, the Voice Study Center, I think, is a fantastic resource, and I've been honored to present there. But I've also been a repeat customer, and every time I go back to your website, I look at your short courses, and it's like, oh, I want to take that one, that one, that one. And I got to ask you, how do you get such great educators? Myself aside, I'm actually stunned that I was able to be in this company. You get absolutely brilliant people. How do you do this?
I just keep my nose to the ground, really. A lot of it is partly because I run the MA, which is obviously the mainstay of what I do. So all those short courses, they funnel into the MA. So all my MA students, the US students can't believe this, by the way, when they come on, that they get it. I never upsell to an MA student. Once they're on, they're on. If I get a course that's fantastic, they've got access to it. And I never upsell anything. It's kind of like my golden principle, really, which the US students are like, what? What?
We upsell everything.
I know, it's completely, they think I'm some Fruit Loop. They think it's got to be a catch.
So if you had a burger stand, you would not ask, would you like fries with that?
No. So I do not upsell ever. So once they pay their fees, which, an MA is not cheap, although obviously compared to again, what the US students pay, it is cheap comparatively, but it is market value within the UK. But no, I never upsell. So I only ever, so I guess the short courses funnel into that. Now, because everybody on that course is doing independent research, they're all doing their own projects. And so I read a lot of their projects. I spend quite a lot of my days reading. So I'm constantly reading research. And so then I'll find that research, and then I'll go and approach them. And usually because I pay, because a lot of researchers in situ, they, at university, they don't get paid when they go and do presentation. They bite my hand off. They're like, when can you book me in? Can I come next week? Because they're actually going to get paid a fee. So that's kind of how it works, really. And then I try also to host really great practitioners, because I think the academics aren't the practitioners are on the ground. So I'm trying to get more of a mix, hence why I invited you, obviously, because you've got an incredible reputation, and I thought, let's get John on because of your reputation. And so I try to sort of represent them both. And ultimately, I'm not interested in methodological bias. There's something in everything. And so I just try and represent. I'm not endorsing anything. It is what it is. If it's Feldenkrais, if it's Alexander, if you don't like it, fair enough. I'm not sort of, and I can't bear it when people get into bitch fests about different methodologies. It's all totally pointless. It gets on my nerves. So I try to represent the whole community really, and that's become one of my driving forces, I suppose, as I've become more and more got better at it. I think.
No, that's a wonderful stance because I see this less and less, but voice can break off into different camps. And then those camps can begin to snipe at each other. Specifically, once you've decided that your methodology has a banner and a name, then other methodologies are those outside. And I love how you just seek knowledge and you bring really knowledgeable people into your world. But I did want to ask, as you bring all this information in, where do you see voice science in this whole world of learning to sing and teaching singing?
I think it's just one aspect. I really do. I think it's an important aspect, but it's not for everybody. I've got some students who might have come from the artistic background. They've come maybe from a voice acting background, maybe sort of 20 or 30 years ago. They just sort of come back into doing an MA, and they say to me, I want to stick my head in a bucket. I just can't cope. And acoustics, that sends the fear of God into quite a lot of my students. You don't have to be anything you don't want to be. Even back in the day when I stood in that room with 15 people, I didn't know what I was doing. I got great performances out of them because I somehow just connected to them and believed in them. And that's the magic in itself. And I think we all have something to bring. And I think we need different types of coaches with different sorts of energies and different sort of at different times, maybe depending on where we are. I think we've all got our place. So I think we need to sort of celebrate that. So I think voice science is great, and if you love it and you want to get micro into the time, I mean, Kerry Obert, who works alongside me now, I mean, she's extraordinary. What a woman! I mean, she spends hours thinking about the various bits of the vocal mechanism. It blows my head away.
Oh yeah, I've had long conversations with Carrie. She's absolutely fascinating. Fascinating.
She's devoted to it, and that's absolutely fantastic. And I think what she brings to the community, I think she should be nominated for an award, really. But it's not for everyone, and so some people are much more excelling, maybe in the psychological side. So I think it's just one part of the story for me.
I think the other thing that you're helping bring into the greater voice community is searching for knowledge outside of traditional voice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you see, I kind of inherited the program, and I won't sort of bore you with too long with the story. It kind of was kind of an accident, really. So it's built on something that's called a professional practice model, which is something that's it's unique to the UK, and it's quite dominant in Australia. But it's probably not something that the US does. And what we do with the professional practice model is the professional practitioner comes first. So we have to meet you to where you are. So you don't jump. It's called flip learning, really, I suppose. And so we meet you, you don't meet us. And so all the students, they drive their own trajectory, and I learn from them. And that's why I'm so ahead sometimes, is because I can see on the ground their lenses. And it's absolutely fascinating. So I learn from them and respond to their needs because I see where they're going. I think, oh my goodness, they've gone there. I didn't know they were going to go there. So then I have to go and find a load of people to come on so that they can have access to sort of the stuff that's going on. So that's probably why it's so explosive and a bit exciting, because I'm constantly responding and learning from those students. And then they also produce magical work because they cross-synthesize. And I think what's so wonderful about creatives is they don't care. They're fearless. So they don't get all hung up with restrictions. They break all the rules and go, and that's what's so terrific. So often what I get is this really unique work, and it's just mind-blowing. I mean, it's a privilege, really. It's a real privilege, I think, to do what I do. And when I first started out, the guy that was my champion, really, which really made it happen, Peter Treadwell, bless him, he's passed on now, which is very sad. But he said to me, you know what you've done? You've created a community of practice. He said, now you you look after that community of practitioners, and you serve them, because you have a duty to see this through and to serve the community. And I think, oh my, I thought he's right. He's absolutely right. Because for a long time I've had, anxieties like everybody does. I've got this MA program. Who the hell am I to be running this MA program? And I think the way I kind of, in my head, I get over that is because I think, actually, one thing I can do is I can serve the community. And it's like creating a human beehive full of this incredible talent. And I think I get that. I absolutely get that to the core of my soul. So I think that's sort of what's behind it, really. Madness and a joy, and a complete joy for what I see going on, and just trying to capture it.
I
Yeah.
love your approach to imposter syndrome, because it's the same as mine. We all deal with it.
Yeah.
But what you do is imposter syndrome, we're looking inward, and you redirect that outward. And it really is, how do I serve people? How do I help people? And that, for anyone dealing with imposter syndrome, that to me is the greatest antidote. Focus outward and help people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I had Ron Morris come to me when I was still doing live stuff then, face-to-face stuff. I don't know if you know of Ron. He's an Australian, very into accent method. Amazing. One of the things that just struck me about him, he could be absolutely loaded. Everybody loves him. People do. But he's completely in service. And he said to me, he said, I regard myself as being in service. And I thought, God, that really is a really great way of looking at it. And I think that's how I deal with it, is I think, right, well, if I just get away from who I am, how can I serve, and how can I make this better? And I think, and for the community, I think we've got to the community's got to move. We've got to have that platform. We've got to have a platform of opportunity. People need to have space to sparkle and shine. And even within the academic world. And I think really to have a really great community of practitioners that are passing on that knowledge, and we've got to host, and we've got to keep that moving. So yeah, so I do have sort of, I never ever sell on either. So I've got a real ethos as well. We've got to keep it live. I think since it's gone online, we've got to keep it live. You can't go selling on after the event. So I mean, day after I might sell a course on, but I never sell on. So there's no archive. I don't sell an archive on to anybody. You can't tap into it, even though they've got hundreds of hours, because that person is, they've got to come back, and they've got to keep on giving that knowledge. And I think we need to really respect that. So yeah, I've gone off on a tangent now.
That's all right. That's what the podcast is for, is tangents. What excites you right now about the voice? Where are you focusing?
Oh, I've kind of seen, it's interesting. I've kind of seen this obsession with the vocal anatomy, and then almost a slight rejection of it, and a kind of a real, it's not the answer to everything. And maybe throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And then we've kind of moved we're now getting involved with the neuroscience. Heidi's obviously given an awful lot. She gives a huge amount of her time and generosity of spirit, the way she shares things. So there's lots of stuff out there going on at the moment. Breathing is kind of really, and community singing as well, and the health aspects of it. And then there's the boundaries. I think one of the biggest challenges is actually singing teachers not always wanting to be singing teachers. And so there's lots of crossing into more therapeutic terrain. So you've got your vocal rehab, you've got coaching and performance coaching, and kind of teetering on psychotherapy, So there's lots of that. So it's just great. There's so much, because I think the voice intersects everything, doesn't it? It embodies everything. So there's so much that we can bring in, and I think that's what's so exciting. Never say never.
So vitally human.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Where can people find out more about you and the Voice Study Center?
So you just type in Voice Study Center, but remember to put an R in it, because it's spelt the English way.
Yes, TRE, not TER.
Yes. And then yeah, we're hosting a whole load of short courses, and they're as relevant to professional singers as they are to teachers. And also professional
Absolutely.
singers sometimes want to cross over into becoming more, they want to maybe undertake more education to teach. So yeah, we've got it
Yeah,
all now. Got it all going on.
there's a wide variety. There are great educators, so I recommend everybody check it out. Debbie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me and letting me wander off on tangents.